All rise, welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. You be the judge. Well, we were presenting the first part of maybe what might be 3 parts to this case, because I don't want to leave anyone out. I'll be accused of being unfair and imbalanced. So I promise you, when presenting each case, each story, each category of people, I can't just dismiss every which one person would fall into one of those categories. So by doing 3, maybe 4 parts to this, it will help lay out the groundwork so everyone has a fair opportunity to be represented appropriately, properly. Being as rights are such a big issue today, we see it everywhere. There's just not enough rights to go around. So the focus being on rights as we see it today, lately especially, I just came across this one case that I can't help but not ignore it. I just wanted to ignore it, but I really shouldn't. So I'm going to skip right into this, and then we'll get back on to part 2 of what we're talking about, courtship and dating. Hopefully just briefly describing what I saw in the Post earlier today here in the state of Pennsylvania. We had some people who, I believe they are foreign Americans. Is there such a thing? I don't know. But they were not, quote, legally U.S. citizens, or maybe they were. I'm not sure. I didn't get that far. I did not go and check Snoops to fact check it. I'm sorry. There's a lot of people that do that, and I'm sorry. I'm just going to give you my version of it, what I've overview of what I see. Because it didn't have to read the article to know exactly what's going on here. So they went to court suing the state of Pennsylvania because they were put in a public school that was deemed not to their caliber. Now, we all who have gone to public school may not agree with a lot of things that go on in our education system, being as it's marginalized mostly because of policy and probably more legalism than many of us might be aware of, including myself. But no one denies that public school has its issues. But I guess because they're so new to the system, that blatantly scamming the system by suing it because you don't want to be in a public school, you could just move. That's what most people have done. But if you're a foreign American or immigrant, you might not know that. So we'd like to hear your case. And I would like to just present just the early part to that preliminary story by suggesting that if they really want to go and take a family portrait in front of the courtroom with their chest puffed out, you might as well just pound it. I mean, I don't get what they're doing. So I wanted to just say this because I don't know the whole ins and outs. We're just going to go based on what we see. I'm not going to read any articles right now at this moment. I just saw that, and it's just from inference and schema. I'd like to say that if anybody wants to go sue, which, there goes my bell. If anybody wants to willingly go out and sue, there's plenty of people that do that. It's called frivolous lawsuits. And I don't know what attorney would take that case unless they're trying to milk the system. And listen, hear me out. It's not always the case. Some people have legitimate cases, so I want everyone to be fair, because if you're not fair, then you'll be discriminating, and then, on and on, and it goes the bell again. I wish I could just shut that thing off. But you'll be accused of being unfair, and then you'll be accused of being discriminatory, and then I don't want to see that happen. Because then you see what happens in places like Milwaukee happen, and then Ferguson. And we don't want people burning stuff down just to make their point. I think they made their point very clear by burning stuff down, we need a fire department, and we need to pay for it. Anyone feel like volunteering? Taking a few bucks out of your pocket would not hurt. Believe me, they are volunteer firefighters. They are not supported unless you put cash in their pocket. See, there are things that we have to do as a community. In this case, we're on an online forum, so obviously this is more widespread, but I didn't want to ignore that case because, as you can see, these people may have a case. They might have been misrepresented. And in the state of Pennsylvania, that's very possible. Believe me, they have backed up the system with all kinds of frivolous cases. Why not another one? But why did this case get such airtime? I really don't know. Maybe it's just the nature in which people feel they're unfairly treated, and that seems to be the consistent thing here, is that we hear a lot of people feel they've been unfairly treated, and in some cases they are. They legitimately have been mistreated. But not everybody that runs around and says that their rights have been violated really are being honest. I mean, I'd like to think in a world today that everyone's honest, but we just simply are not that naive. So my first assumption is that they're scamming. And if anybody got those phone calls from the from the fake phonies that are playing the FBI, listen, I can tell you we present this stuff because it is for news entertainment, but there is some truth to some of the stuff we're talking about. We're not completely whitewashing everything as dishonest and lying. But what I present is the opinions of other. I legitimately could take this stuff to court. A lot of this stuff could be backed up in court. Not all of it do I have all the facts. But most of the stuff we talk about can be backed up in a court of law. So we're not completely off our rocker. So let me say this. If you were watching or reading in a story like that, and knowing what you know about some of the scam artists out there, which, in fact, one girl I was talking to at one of the nearby centers, she was getting phone calls, and they were warning her that if she did not pay her back taxes, that she would be, in fact, subject to stiffer fines and jail. Well, it just turns out that this has been the newest scam. And if you haven't heard about the scam, you should check out Doug Hagman and Joe Hagman. They know all about what happened. In fact, many of their listeners at their call-in radio show and have emailed them. And now Doug and Joe are legitimate detectives, so we like to think that when they hear this case and they take that a little more serious, they know that people are being scammed not only out of $400 here or $100, but a lot of people are, and they're taking this. Obviously, the scam works, or they wouldn't be doing it. So we would love to hear your feedback, but as we wrap up this part of the case, because obviously we don't have all the facts, we don't know the whole story, I would like to know a little bit on what you might think, just from your inference or opinions about something that like this could happen. Okay, so now we're on to the second part of courtship. Now, we talked about courtship and dating, rituals, traditions, religious views, opinions, how families conduct introducing their couple to go public, make it official. Engagement is that you're making an official announcement, the newspaper write-up, a brief description of the couple. That's been very much part of the American newspaper. How people announce things. So today, as marriage is now newly evolved into something else, I wonder, because I haven't really picked up the newspaper recently, but how they represent a gay homosexual couple who would want to be married. So it's obvious this is the new change in the system. And I don't want to be unfair in any way, because I think there are legitimate people who legitimately are with people that they care about and they love. Now, the controversy being between gay marriage and traditional marriage is very much a controversy. It's not a topic I can touch on. It would take up a lot more time right now. But we do know the basics. We do know the basis of what's going on today. Now, do I support it personally? I would not support this kind of radical change. No, I would not. I think when you think in terms of putting it under a different label, yes, I would support that. But just to call it marriage, it's confusing. It's a lot more than I think most people even really want to get into. And then we saw that with what happened in Kentucky, the case there, where Kim Davis was arrested. Now, these are the laws that have been recently changed, and there is usually a wait time where that transition time, but that was not the case with Kim Davis. They were forcing her to make this decision. Really, it was not too long after, the decision, not so much law, because it wasn't written into law. I don't believe it was. If anybody knows that, forward it over to me. But this is what we're presented with. So it brings up a bunch of controversies that a lot of people haven't crossed that point yet, or maybe they have, and they want to be delicate and concerned with what is right under the law. So what is the law? The law once was changed. Really? I don't know. So I don't even touch this topic because I don't know a lot about the intricacies of that. But I will say that it does present some challenges. Like we have heard cases where there are people that would want a wedding cake. Now that seems like a simple thing, a simple request, but they're particularly targeting people that of different religious beliefs. And that was what concerned me about the Kim Davis case. Are they purposely targeting them and fabricating cases, creating these cases, which are probably true, okay, but are they particularly targeting couples, families, relationships, people who present themselves to be of a different religious belief system? And under what we know is legal and lawful is that people are allowed to conduct their lives because they have an amendment called the First Amendment, the freedom of religion, their freedom of worship, So it's not freedom from worship, it's not freedom of religion, because there is clearly a distinct difference between how the state and private citizens conduct their lives. We want that separation to be real. And legitimately we do. So the controversy is the language. It's the intricacies of the words that are being used. And if you're not careful, if you trip over these words, you can get caught up in that. That's where people need to pay attention. A lot of people don't. So they have a wrong understanding of it, and it's a huge misunderstanding in which people don't understand it, and we want to be careful that we don't go over and above what we know we're allowed. Because at a different capacity, I would probably present it differently. I know there are people with sensitive issues regarding their relationship status. And their relationship status is not my issue. My issue is not whether they're gay or homosexual. My issue is when you start changing the laws radically, then it presents a different type of situation, which most people have not been comfortable conducting the business in the courtroom. So this is why we don't touch on it, because it's like an unending big hole that we find ourselves in, and we of course have to dig ourselves out of it. And I think sometimes these are things that are done purposely. That's why I don't like going down that road, because the laws are supposed to be simple enough for all of us to understand. There's some basic laws that which is the cornerstone of the common sense. The laws are supposed to make sense. And what's happening is it's convoluted. It's full of all kinds of minutia, all kinds of red tape and bureaucracy. And it's all done with the intention to confuse people more. And this is why I like to keep it very, very simple. Now, there are so many opinions, so you have to keep it simple. But this whole business about dating, marriage, all the complications that come with just dating alone, if we complicate it more, which can be easily done, then we end up having to do another blog post. And we don't want to do that. So, but dating and relationships, they have their set of issues. People bring all kinds of things in. I do not care how perfect you think you are. Everyone has their own things they bring into a relationship. And as we ventured down this subject and topic, we realized that every different situation is applicable to depending on that circumstance. So we are going to log off right now, and we'll pick up later at the Court of Public Opinion.